Good morning and welcome to the Point. This week, we continue to look at a special election in the 80th House District. That seat is open because of the expulsion of Cindy Gamrat. Gamrat is the former member of the House who wants to be the future member of the House. She's running again in a big primary, and she is our first guest this morning. Let's begin with how we got here for this race. Obviously, a year ago or more, you and I were talking about an election that was coming up. You were elected. You were ultimately expelled. And I want to read something to you from your campaign from October 3rd. It said, in the early morning hours of September 11th, Allegan County had their voice in the House of Representatives stolen from them. You go on to talk about how it happened in Lansing, about it being extreme. You talk about the people who were on the committee. A couple of them you said were main sponsors of bills to increase gas taxes. And you said, and I'm skipping through a lot of this, obviously, you said, I could not go along with these egregious overreaches of government, and spoke out against each one of them. And you go on to say that they have now used misleading and personal attacks because I have stood with the people. Well, I understand that you took positions that were different from many of the Republican caucus. This seems to suggest that you were expelled because of your political views, not your personal behavior. Is that your take?
It is. You know, even if you were in the committee hearings, and I'm not sure if you were the other ones who were, even the House legal counsel, the legal counsel for the House stood up in the beginning of the committee hearings and said, after looking at all the evidence does not warrant expulsion for Gamrat. And then after the committee hearings, we went through that process, stood up again, and the legal counsel said under oath that the evidence does not warrant expulsion for Gamrat. And so, yet I was expelled anyway. And what I was concerned about, and what I still am concerned about, is through that entire process, the voters in my county didn't have any voice in the process. It was completely taken away from them. They didn't have a voice in the matter at all. And, you know, I had been fighting for 7 months for them to have a voice in this process in Lansing. And so I was concerned about that being taken away, not just for our voters, but, you know, for the state. I think we need to be very cautious and careful when we give the power to Lansing to override the voice of the voters and take away their elected official.
To be very clear, because I want to move on and do the interview about why you're running now. To be very clear, you believe you were expelled because of your political views and not because of the behavior between you and Representative Corser.
I do, and you know, there's been a lot of false allegations
What's false?
in the news, and I don't know that you want to spend the whole time, and I don't want to spend the whole time going.
If there's something false out there, we should know.
There's been a whole bunch of false things, Rick, and I haven't been found guilty of anything. I haven't been found guilty of anything, and again, House Legal even said after looking at the evidence, they didn't even see the evidence that warranted expulsion.
All right, let's move on to what this race is about. There are 8 Republicans on the ballot. I believe only 7 are actively participating in this primary. You are running, why?
Because I want to finish the work that I was sent there to do. You know, in my first 7 months, I put forward some major legislation, like life at conception, and I believe in life, and I've been one of the strongest voices for life in the House. And I want to be able to finish. We put a lot of work into that bill, and I want to continue on with life at conception, constitutional carry, the Pastor's Protection Act, and a number of other bills that I put forward. I have a strong voting record, one of the most conservative voting records in the House, and the voters out there can go ahead and look at that too. And so I've been a strong voice against raising the taxes and fees and fines and regulations on the people in my district. Sometimes, and many times, even the only no vote in appropriations, you know, in regarding to not raising the fees and fines and taxes.
You said, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said in the debate earlier this week that you had come up with a number of ways to fix the roads in the state of Michigan without raising taxes. Now, as one who has looked at the budget very carefully, as a technical matter, I think there are dozens of ways that you could fix the road. As a practical matter, how do you find, if you agree that it takes $1.2 billion a year for the next 10 years, how do you find that money in the budget?
I don't know if I necessarily agree it takes exactly that amount, and I've had some meetings with Senator Pat Colbeck and looked at his plan that looks at a little bit less, but if you look at the quality of the roads and the long-term quality, that we might not need quite $100 $1.2 billion. And there are many ways, but I think the word we need to use instead of in a practical sense, I think we need to look at in a responsible sense. You know, what are we responsible to do to be fiscally responsible with the taxpayer dollars? And what I mean with that is, you know, the families in Michigan have to live within their budget, and the government should be able to live within our budget. We have a responsibility to pay for the roads with the money that we have already been given. And when I sat on appropriations and I see a legislature pass the largest budget in Michigan history, at the same time we cut road funding during a road funding crisis, and then now are turning around and saying we need more money from the taxpayers for roads, I think it's irresponsible. There are many ways you can get to that money to prioritize those dollars, and I think we have a responsibility to do that.
When you talk about being a vote, sometimes the only no vote, in order to get things done in Lansing, as you are well aware, when the House is full, you need 56 yes votes. How do you get, if you have items that you want to pass, how do you get to 56? How do you go into the House of Representatives, a group of people who have asked you to leave, and if you're reelected, how do you build a consensus with this?
Well, I didn't run on going into Lansing to win a popularity contest.
Well, it's not popularity, it's 56 is the reality.
Right, but when you have to sometimes stand against your party, then you're not going to win that popularity contest. But the truth of the matter is, any legislator can't make promises that they will get something passed on their own. We can only make promises that we will go in and fight for these certain things. We can only make promises that we will try to put forward good policy for the people of Michigan. And you know, if the legislators there want to play party politics, or you know, put in personal discrepancies in with their decision making, I'm sorry about that. I think that stuff should be put to the side. I think that's what people are tired of in politics and in Lansing and Washington, to be honest with you. They're tired of the petty politic games. They want us focusing on the issues and the policy that are important to them. And that's what I'll be focusing on, and I'm happy to work with them on those things as well.
Let me talk for just a minute about Allegan County, because obviously there are issues that are in the district that people are concerned about that go far beyond some of the things that you may be, you know, the overarching issues, even beyond road funding. I mean, people are interested in jobs, I assume, and interested in education, those kind of things. What are the most pressing issues for the people that you would like to represent in Allegan County?
I think there are a few that come to mind right away: education and local control of education, and lots of concern about Common Core in my district. I don't know if it looks that way across the state, but in my district, one of the top issues that people, families, and parents would bring to me is Common Core. And I have a lot of concern about that. I've been fighting that. In fact, I put an amendment forward that would eliminate funding to do the data collection on our children, which I think is wrong. And so I know there's been a lot of outside money into this race already with the Great Lakes Education Project pushing for one of my opponents, and they are one of the biggest advocates of Common Core. So education is one. Also jobs in the economy and taxes. And so I put forward two bills that I think would benefit everybody in my district, and that is to eliminate the income tax and also a bill to eliminate the rest of the MBT, or the Michigan business tax. And Mackinac Capital Confidential put out a report today actually about how Michigan taxpayers are on the hook for billions of dollars because of the Michigan business tax and what's still in place. And so I put forward legislation that would help in those ways as well.
We're almost out of time, but I'm fascinated. Do away with the income tax. How do you replace that revenue?
You tighten down and get rid of government waste, and you figure out a way to prioritize those dollars. And we got to look at the economy and the overall picture of it. Most small businesses claim and file under personal individual taxes, and so we need to help them unleash and grow and be able to hire new people. And I think in the end, you get a positive net result from that.
We are almost out of time, so I want to finish where we started, because in 40 years of covering politics, this is a unique circumstance. Certainly unique for you, but unique for me, who I've covered hundreds of races over the years. I am told, and correct me if I'm wrong, that as this program airs, you're doing a fundraiser this Sunday. Is that true?
My sister is for me.
Are you going to be at the fundraiser?
I am.
And it's in Lapeer County,
where my sister lives. My family's wanted to help, and she works full time, and she lives on the other side of the state, and she knows a lot of people who bowl. I have actually a lot of aunts and cousins who live over near her, and she wanted to do a bowling fundraiser, and I said, feel free. You've
seen what the reports have been. You know what the political optics.
I think I do, but I think this is again what it's not really important to the people of Allegan. I mean, the issues that are important to them are the issues that we talked about. Not that my sister wants to have a fundraiser and help me out. So, which I think is great.
That fundraiser for Mrs. Gamrat is being held at a bowling alley called Hideaway Lanes. We're back with more To The Point in just a moment. Welcome back to The Point. The special election in the 80th House District has attracted 8 Republicans, 7 who are actively participating, 1 who declined our interview and says he's not running, but 2 more who are right here on the program this morning. Up next is Bill Sage. Tell me a little bit about your background, because while I'm sure a lot of people know you down in the 80th District, there'll be a lot of other folks who don't. So tell me where you've been, what have you done?
Well, I've been a commissioner. I'm the founder of Constituting Michigan, which renews the founding principles back in our school system, because the thought being is that our children and our politicians never really learned the founding principles that made our country great. I'm also the founder of Reconstituting America, which is just beginning. And that's the object. Now, I've passed bills, had bills passed, I'm a winner. The Pledge of Allegiance that's back in our schools, I don't know if you're aware of that, are you?
No, I mean, in what terms?
Well, that was part of the Constituting Michigan program, because many of the schools in Michigan and in the country no longer announce it.
Right.
Well, it's being announced in every school in the state now because of one of our bills, SB 637, that came out of the Constituting Michigan initiative, and the legislation that was drafted originally by Dave Agema. And actually it was a group of 9 individuals, including Dr. Richard Ziley on the State Board of Education, that helped draft that legislation.
So in your past, you've obviously worked on legislation with members and with others to try to change policy. So I guess that's part of your reason for running now, is because you want to impact policy.
Yeah, and I know what I'm doing. I can get stuff done. I've got, I don't have a lobby group backing me like my oppositions do. I don't have $150,000 for a District 80 race. It's me. And the donations I get are from individuals, not from corporations. So I don't work for the corporations. I work for the people of the 80th District. I've been working for them for 4 years now, on my own dime, on my own time. Lansing, several times. Again, I have a lobby group of We the People in every county of this state. So we can get things done for the 80th in Michigan. I'm the guy to do it.
What is it you want to get done? What needs to be done? Well, and let's start first at the county level. Is there anything specifically for Allegan County that needs to be done?
Yeah, I want to increase people's income. Many of the people in Allegan County, at least 76% of them, are working behind their paycheck. Now, when I say that, I'm referring to there's more bills than paycheck. The middle class is dwindling, you know that. And I'm one of that. I'm one of those middle class that are struggling to make the payments done. And I want to bring home the income and keep the promise to the people of Allegan County and the 80th District. That's what I want to do, and that's exactly what I intend to do.
How do you do that? I mean, that is a wish for so many people, and I won't enumerate them, but you know of counties all over the state that are suffering some of those same problems. There are some counties doing better, but there are a lot of people in every county that are in exactly the situation that you just described. How do you make that change? 76%
of the people, Rick. Okay. Well, let's use the road. Let's use the road issue, for example. That's actually a simple solution. It's so simple, it's almost stupid, okay? In the state of Michigan, the Natural Resources Trust Fund receives $500 million from petroleum companies and gas companies throughout the state from government-owned land. Now, that government-owned land is about 22% of the state. In other words, let's use this hand right here. That's about 22% of the state. That's owned by the government. Okay, now they're still using that fund, the NRTF fund it's called. $500 million a year. Well, that just happens to be about how much we need for the roads. Okay, so all you do is create a policy bill, a resolution first, then a policy bill to switch the allocation of the NRTF fund over to the roads. Problem solved. not taxpayer money. Now that is one of my campaign issues, is because I'm not going to raise any taxes, fines, or fees. If anything, I'm going to keep the promise. I'm going to repeal. And that's what I intend to do, because I'm one of us. I'm not a politician. I'm a statesman. And I've got a proven record of doing the same.
When you say 500 million, I don't want to get down in the weeds, but
I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. The number that has been talked about in Lansing is from 1.2 to 1.5 billion dollars a year. So you have numbers at 500. You think 500 million dollars is more appropriate for roads?
Well, part of that 6% on the gas tax, you've got 18%, 19%, 18% federal, 19% state, 6% sales on gas tax, one of the highest in the country. Okay. Part of that gas tax is with the, gosh, what's the name of that? The RPT fund, which is, it's a petroleum fund, okay? That money doesn't go to the roads. It goes elsewhere. It's in another bucket. And the bucket is funding buckets, is how they call it in Lansing. That's another $50 million right there. Now you get dollar for dollar. You get dollar Michigan money, dollar federal money, okay? So you have 1.1 billion right there. Without raising taxes.
When you talk about trying to get equity for people who are in the middle class and struggling, and you use this, how is that going to help them then raise that paycheck?
No more taxes, no added taxes. And what we can do in order to do that is you go into the budget. Okay, this is a 2-year process though to get it done. And you itemize the budget of the state. Now it's going to take 2 years at least to do this. You've got to do policy bills. You've got to do reappropriation bills to reappropriate all this money, like the NRTF and the RPT. Those are acronyms, but those are the fundings that go where they shouldn't be going. And you do that over the course of the whole budget, line by line by line by line. You do resolutions first, and then you do the policy bills in order to change the appropriations for each different department. And I'm also going to call for our governor to call for a 1% to 2% decrease in each department in their budget to the department heads. And it's very simple. If they don't want to do it, our governor has a total right to fire them for not doing it, and start turning the ship around. Okay, property tax. The 1.5% property tax that each individual gets on their home every year, it gets added on. You're aware of that. We do a resolution and legislation to do away with that immediately. That's what one of the first bills will initiate. And that's 1.5%, along with increasing the rights of property tax. You know, I had my brother bought a property for a company up in Lake County, paid $45,000 for it. It was a house on a lake worth $133,000. And I talked to the lady on the phone. She called me because she heard about what I'm trying to do. And, you know, she owed $1,400 on that property. All right? She paid the $1,400, but they put it on 2013 taxes. That was Lake County's fault, not this lady's fault. 88 years old. She owed nothing on that property. They took the money. They sold it for $45,000. County kept the money, or the state, okay? Government kept the money. And she's left with nothing. You know, that's unconstitutional. Property taxes need to be strengthened so they can't take homes away from 88-year-old ladies.
Another Republican who also would like to win the nomination is Jim Siver. Let's start with your background for people who may not have yet met you in the 80th District. Tell me a little bit about what you've done and how you got to this point.
Okay, well, I've been a trial lawyer for the last 35 years or so. 10 of which I was Vice President and General Counsel of the Dart Energy Corporation in Mason, Michigan. And then I left Dart Energy in 1993, and I opened a small practice in Lansing for a while and decided that the economy was a little better in Grand Rapids. And so in 95 or 96, I moved to the Grand Rapids area and opened practice and haven't looked back.
When you look at the race that you've gotten in, what is it that first motivates you to run, and then what would you hope to achieve?
Well, the first thing is that I believe that we need to bring some honesty back to Lansing. I'm not saying that all of the gentlemen that are there and the ladies are not honest. I know some of them that are there that I've worked with at DART that are, in my estimation, some of the most honest people I've ever met. But on the other hand, I believe that the 80th District has a right to have someone who is honest about what they do. If I tell you that I'm going to do something, I'll do my best to do it. I'm not going to promise that I'm going to do this and then get there and not do it, but I'm going to tell you I'm going to do this if I can. And I will do my best to do what I tell you that I'm going to do.
What do you think needs to be done? And let's start at the district level for the folks in Allegan County. What are the needs that you see for their representation in Lansing? Because obviously there's only so much as a state representative that you can impact a district, but that would be the first line, I would think. What can you do for people in the 80th?
Right.
What do they need?
Well, what they need is the same as what we need all over the state. We need our roads and bridges fixed. And why do we need those fixed in Allegan County? So that we can have a strong economy. Everything that we do in business revolves around the ability to move goods and services. If you can't get to the lawyer's office, you can't come and see him. If you can't get to the dentist's office, you can't get your teeth fixed. If you can't get someplace to a doctor, then you can't get the medicine that you need. Why? Because of the roads and the bridges. And it costs us more money for cars to be fixed and tires to be put on cars and trucks and tractors because of the damage that's done to the roads over the winter time and over the last few years. So the first priority that we need in this state is to look at how we can get those roads and bridges fixed and then maintain them. The second thing that we need in our county is we need the ability to get people jobs. We need to bring more business into the county. Now, how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by making a business climate that is reasonable and accessible. You've got to take some of the business taxes off of the small business people. You see, I have a unique background in that I've been on both sides of this fence. I've been a vice president of the largest independent oil company in the state. And I've also been the managing attorney for a law firm that consists of myself and my son. So that's a pretty small business. And the problem is because of the taxation of small businesses, for every 5 employees you have a 6th ghost employee because of the taxes that you have to pay. That's a huge amount that you have to spend on small businesses. I think we've got to correct those things so that people that run small businesses in Allegan County can hire people. Now, in addition to that, we've got to work on our curriculums and our education. I am a proponent of the Common Core. I know that a lot of my colleagues are not. The reason that I am is I've talked a lot with both retired teachers and my wife, who is a substitute teacher. And we talk about what they're teaching in the schools. For a while there, they cut out teaching cursive writing. How can a kid sign a check if he doesn't know how to write his name? We've got to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we've got to get it to a level that we can compete with Illinois and Indiana and Ohio and Missouri and all of these other states. One of that's a problem that we need to direct to. That has a direct effect on jobs. If kids can read and write and they can go and give you change at the store and they can count out the change at the store, then they can get these jobs. I have 2 19-year-old stepdaughters that came out of Fenville High School, went to work at a grocery store in town there. One of the big factors in hiring them was they could make change.
When you talk about the basics in education and Common Core, there are those that would say those two don't line up, that Common Core teaches something other than what we think of as basics. In the short period of time that we have, we can't dissect that and break it down. But when you talk about Common Core, is it your view, as some suggest, that Common Core is this curriculum that's established that is then overlaid everywhere, or is this a set of standards that is established that allows curriculum to be done on the local level?
It is the second one. It is this idea that we have a common basis of educational core, and then the teachers have the right or the ability to make their own curriculum that teaches these basic items. Okay, so that there's a misconception about Common Core. People think that the federal government has made a curriculum and forced it down the throat of the states. That's not true at all. The federal government put its blessing on it, but the states actually got together, 42 states got together, and their State Department of Education all said, what is it that we need to teach kids so that they can go and write a check someplace, so that they can get a job someplace? And then they put a basic level of education, and the teachers are free to work with that level.
We are really out of time, but I have to ask this question because
Sure.
It comes with everybody, and it was your number one priority. How do you pay for roads? Existing funds or raise taxes?
Existing funds. And I really believe that if in fact we can get the people in Lansing to do the kinds of things that they say they'll do. For instance, they said they'd pay for education using the lottery. It's never happened. I'm a little bit leery of that, but I would like to see them take the gas tax, use it for what it's designed for our roads, to make the roads so that they're usable.
We're back with more To the Point in just a moment. So far, you have met 5 of the Republicans who are running for the nomination in the 80th District and the Democrat that will eventually be in the general election. Next week, the other 2 Republicans actively participating, and we have another special election we'll be taking a look at too. I hope you'll join us next and every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock on Wood TV 8 for To the Point.